What are they doing up here?
I don't want to up here.
They're floating in the water. Like, it feels like they're floating in space.
Oh.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
No gravity? You float?
Yeah.
Okay. Ready for the test?
Yeah.
You don't pass?
No.
Do the test.
Yeah. Alright. So what happens in... I know. So what happens in space?
I know.
Do you float?
It's funny.
Do you float or do you sink?
Sink.
Do you float or do you sink?
Float.
Good job. So when you crash in a space shuttle, do you go down a slide or do you jump out?
Jump out.
You go down a slide or do you jump out?
Jump out.
Oh, you didn't get that. You got down a slide.
That was right.
Yes. So when the astronauts are getting very fit, do they lift weights or do they eat McDonald's?
Tunnels.
Do they lift weights or eat McDonald's?
Tunnels.
Okay, you got 1 out of 3 so far. You're doing too well.
Some crimes make headlines. Others leave behind questions that refuse to die. Welcome to True Crime Exposure, where we uncover the evidence, examine the courtroom moments, and piece together the stories that continue to captivate the world. Every detail matters. Every decision has consequences. If you're ready to look beyond the headlines, let's begin. The perfect suburban dream is often just a fragile veneer, a meticulously painted mask designed to hide the rot festering underneath. In the quiet, sun-drenched streets of Frederick, Colorado, the morning of August 13, 2018, seemed entirely ordinary. But inside a beautiful, sprawling home at 2825 Saratoga Trail, an unimaginable, suffocating darkness had just settled. A devoted mother, pregnant with her 3rd child, and her 2 fiercely loved young daughters had vanished without a trace. The initial panic began not with a grand explosion of violence, but with a terrifying silence. A friend arrived for a scheduled appointment, only to find the house locked, the car parked in the garage, and the family's shoes still sitting by the front door. When the police arrived, accompanied by a seemingly anxious, soft-spoken husband, the air inside the home felt heavy, thick with the invisible residue of a nightmare that was only just beginning to unravel. As the bodycam footage rolled, capturing the husband packing, shifting his weight, and sweating under the pristine Colorado sun, the world watched the birth of a mystery that would soon mutate into one of the most chilling cases in modern criminal history. A mother's phone left on a counter, her purse abandoned, the children's favorite blankets missing. These were the first breadcrumbs in a trail that led directly into the abyss. It wasn't just a disappearance. It was a sudden, violent erasure of 3 innocent lives from the face of the earth. The realization that something was deeply, profoundly wrong did not hit like a sudden lightning strike, but rather crept in like a cold fog, chilling the responding officers to the bone as they realized the man standing before them, claiming to pray for his family's safe return, was spinning a web of deceit. This is the beginning of a story that defies human comprehension, a descent into the absolute darkest corners of the human psyche, where protection turns to predation. One of the tragedy that broke the heart of a nation, the opening notes of a requiem for a family destroyed by the person who was supposed to love them the most. If you are compelled by stories that seek the truth in the heart of darkness, take a moment to subscribe to True Crime Exposure, hit the like button, and share this video to ensure the voices of the innocent are never forgotten. Turn on your notifications so you never miss the chapters to come. What do you think was the exact moment the mask began to slip for the man packing on that porch? Let me know in the comments below. To truly understand the depth of the tragedy that unfolded on Saratoga Trail, one must look past the pristine facade of the house and into the lives of the people who called it home. On the surface, Shanann Watts was a force of nature, ambitious, deeply organized, and fiercely dedicated to her family. Her social media feeds were a vibrant, non-stop chronicle of a seemingly perfect life. Two beautiful daughters, a loving husband, a booming career in direct marketing, and a spacious new home. To the outside world, she had achieved the ultimate American dream. Her daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste, known affectionately as Cease, were the absolute center of her universe. Bella was the quiet, sensitive soul, a thoughtful, gentle child who observed the world with big, serious eyes and possessed a deep attachment to her mother. Cease, by contrast, was a burst of pure, unfiltered energy. She was a fearless, spunky toddler who loved to laugh, test boundaries, and bring a chaotic joy to every room she entered. They were two distinct lights, growing up in what appeared to be an idyllic, nurturing environment. Beside Shanann stood Chris Watts, a man universally described by friends and neighbors as quiet, unassuming, and endlessly patient. He was the calm to Shannon's storm, a hands-on father who happily assumed the role of the reliable, supportive husband. He was the man who worked on cars, helped with the children's bedtime routines, and quietly faded into the background while his charismatic wife took center stage. He seemed entirely content in his role as the steady anchor of the family. But beneath this carefully curated digital tapestry of smiles, family vacations, and matching outfits, financial and emotional fault lines were quietly widening. The family had already survived one bankruptcy, and the pressure of maintaining their upper-middle-class lifestyle was mounting. Mortgages, childcare costs, and escalating debts were creating a silent, suffocating pressure cooker. Yet, it wasn't just financial stress that began to fracture the foundation of the home. In the months leading up to that fateful August, an invisible, chilling shift occurred within Chris. A man who had once been overweight and socially awkward underwent a dramatic physical transformation, shedding weight and building muscle. With his new physique came a sudden, profound emotional withdrawal that left Shanann bewildered and desperate for answers. The affectionate husband who once doted on his children began to treat his family like an unwanted burden, turning cold, distant, and completely unreachable. The stage was being quietly set for a betrayal so profound it would shatter the illusion of their perfect life forever. The shift inside the home on Saratoga Trail began to manifest in ways that were both subtle and terrifyingly overt. For Shanann, the sudden, icy distance from the man she loved felt like an agonizing mystery. The warmth that once defined Chris Watts had completely evaporated, replaced by a calculated indifference that left her drowning in anxiety. She began sending desperate, lengthy text messages, pleading for answers, begging to know what had changed, and asking if he still loved her. His responses were short, cold, and utterly devoid of emotion, the digital footprint of a man who had already mentally checked out of his own life. The true catalyst for this chilling transformation lay outside the family home, hidden in the mundane rows of an oil company office. Chris had begun a passionate, secret affair with a coworker. To his mistress, he presented himself as a victim of an unhappy marriage, a man trapped and actively seeking a divorce. In the intoxicating thrill of this new relationship, Chris didn't just see a new partner. He saw an entirely new life, completely unburdened by the responsibilities of a mortgage, a pregnant wife, and 2 young daughters. The affair quickly crossed the line from a temporary escape to a consuming obsession. As the summer weeks wore on, the red flags grew impossible to ignore. During a 6-week trip to North Carolina, where Shanann took the girls to visit family, the distance between the couple grew into an insurmountable chasm. When Chris finally joined them for the final week, his behavior was alarming. He refused to hold Shanann, avoided her touch, and treated the children with a devastating coldness. It was during this trip that the psychological groundwork for the nightmare was laid. Shanann confided in her friends that her husband was acting like a stranger, admitting she felt unsafe in her own marriage, not out of fear of physical violence, but because the utter lack of empathy radiating from Chris was deeply unnatural. Back in Colorado, the tension reached a boiling point. The final weekend before the tragedy, Chris took his mistress out for a romantic dinner, paid for with the family bank account, an act of sheer defiance that alerted Shanann to a suspicious charge. The financial, emotional, and psychological boundaries had all been breached. Chris felt trapped between the life he desperately wanted and the family he now viewed as an obstacle. The dark reality was that while Shanann was actively purchasing self-help books, fighting to save her marriage, and carrying his unborn son, Nico, Chris was quietly calculating a way out. He was no longer a father or a husband. He had become an apex predator in his own home, waiting for the perfect moment of vulnerability to strike. The escalating tension within the home began to manifest in a profound emotional distance. For Shanann, the sudden change in her husband's behavior was deeply confusing. The open communication that had once defined their relationship was replaced by a cold silence. She tried reaching out through letters and messages, seeking to understand what was wrong and how they could fix their relationship. The responses she received were brief and detached, signaling a husband who was withdrawing entirely from his family life. The true source of this distance was a shift in Chris's priorities and a growing desire to walk away from his responsibilities. He had become completely checked out of his marriage, viewing his family life not as a source of pride, but as a commitment he no longer wanted to keep. This emotional detachment grew stronger over the summer months, creating an icy atmosphere in the house that left Shanann feeling increasingly isolated and anxious about the future of their marriage. During a multi-week trip to visit family in North Carolina, the rift became undeniable. When Chris joined them later in the trip, his demeanor was noticeably altered. The warmth expected after weeks apart was entirely absent. He was distant with both Shanann and the children, creating an uncomfortable and confusing environment for everyone involved. Shanann shared her concerns with close friends, expressing heartbreak over how much a person could change in such a short amount of time. Upon returning to Colorado, the situation reached a critical point. While Shanann was actively trying to find ways to repair the relationship and communicate openly, Chris was mentally preparing to leave. The shared goals, dreams, and stability they had built together over the years had dissolved on his end, replaced by a complete lack of investment in his family's well-being. The home that had once been filled with energy and plans for the future had become a place of silent, emotional alienation. The focus of the investigation quickly turned to the digital and forensic evidence left behind in the frantic hours following the family's disappearance. When local authorities and federal investigators began examining the home and Chris Watts's digital footprint, the narrative of a worried, abandoned husband immediately began to fall apart. Forensic analysts extracted data from the family's personal electronics, discovering a trail of internet searches and communications that severely contradicted Chris's timeline. Investigators uncovered his hidden relationship with a coworker, establishing a clear motive for his desire to escape his family life. Security footage from a neighbor's driveway camera captured Chris backing his work truck up to the garage early on the morning of August 13th, loading items into the cargo bed over a prolonged period, a sequence that disproved his claim that Shanann had left on her own with the children while he was at work. Furthermore, GPS tracking data from his company vehicle placed his truck at a remote oil site owned by his employer early that morning. When investigators confronted him with the mounting digital evidence, his initial story shifted to a series of conflicting explanations during his polygraph test and subsequent interviews. A search of the oil site guided by the GPS data led investigators to the discovery of the victims. Forensic evidence collected at the scene, including soil samples and the recovery of Shanann's phone and personal items inside the house, established a definitive timeline that connected Chris directly to the location. The digital trail, combined with the physical evidence at the site, provided the core foundation for the legal case, dismantling the cover-up within days of the initial missing persons report. The legal proceedings moved with remarkable speed as the weight of the forensic and digital evidence made a prolonged trial unnecessary. In November 2018, Faced with the overwhelming case built by investigators, Chris Watts entered a guilty plea to multiple counts, including first-degree murder, the unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and tampering with a deceased human body. By entering this plea, he avoided the death penalty, a decision made in consultation with Shanann's family, who sought to avoid a lengthy, agonizing trial while ensuring guaranteed justice. The sentencing hearing provided a stark, public accounting of the legal consequences of his actions. The prosecution presented the definitive timeline established by the digital evidence, GPS tracking, and forensic findings to the court. The judge sentenced him to 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would spend the remainder of his life in a maximum security prison. The legal resolution brought a formal end to the criminal investigation, cementing the findings into the public record. The swift transition from the initial missing persons report to a permanent lifetime incarceration highlighted the efficiency of the multi-agency law enforcement response, leaving no legal ambiguity regarding the responsibility for the events on Saratoga Trail. The aftermath of the tragedy left an indelible mark on the family and the surrounding community, illustrating the profound human cost of the loss. For Shanann's parents and brother, the sudden and absolute erasure of their daughter, grandchildren, and unborn nephew brought an unimaginable wave of grief. In the days and months following the event, they spoke publicly about the enduring pain of the loss, choosing to focus their energy on honoring the memories of Shanann, Bella, and Cease, rather than the actions of the person who took them away. The quiet community of Frederick, Colorado, was similarly shaken. The neighborhood on Saratoga Trail, once a symbol of suburban peace, briefly became the focal point of national attention. A makeshift memorial of flowers, stuffed animals, and candles grew on the front lawn of the vacant home, as strangers and neighbors alike gathered to mourn the 2 young sisters and their mother. The tragedy sparked widespread conversations about domestic tranquility, internal struggles within families, and the hidden realities that can exist behind closed doors. Over time, the physical reminders faded, but the emotional impact remained. Loved ones established foundations and charitable efforts in Shanann's name, attempting to channel their grief into support for others facing difficult circumstances. The enduring legacy of the tragedy became one of remembrance for 3 vibrant lives cut short, leaving a community forever changed by the realization of how quickly a familiar world could be shattered. The events that transpired on Saratoga Trail leave behind a haunting space for reflection, challenging our understanding of human nature and the hidden depths of the people we think we know. It forces a confrontation with the uncomfortable truth that the greatest dangers do not always look menacing. Sometimes, they wear the familiar face of a neighbor, a husband, or a father. The absolute collapse of a family from within serves as a somber reminder of the fragility of trust and the hidden struggles that can exist behind the most meticulously crafted public images. Ultimately, justice in the legal sense was served swiftly, ensuring a permanent separation between the perpetrator and society. Yet, no amount of legal finality can truly heal the void left in the hearts of those who loved Shanann, Bella, and Cease. The true resolution lies not in the cell where a life sentence is served, but in the enduring memory of the 3 innocent lives that were lost, and the collective hope that such a tragedy might never be repeated. What do you think is the most important lesson we can draw from a tragedy that seemed completely unpredictable from the outside? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this deep dive respectful and informative, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to True Crime Exposure. Don't forget to turn on your notifications so you never miss our future analytical breakdowns. Thank you for watching.